Today we're having a look at two amazing value lenses from Tamron. They are the 70-180 F2.8 and the 28-200 F2.8 to 5.6. Some similarities, some differences, but we're gonna rip these things apart as usual to figure out which one's gonna be better for you. Let's get started. Welcome back, guys, and yeah, we're looking at some of Tamron's newer lenses, the 70-180 versus the 28-200. Yeah, they're different, but there's a lot of similarities, so today we're gonna help choose which one's gonna be better for you, and I'm just so happy to see Tamron really pushing the bar and bringing us some amazing budget options. These things are just phenomenal. Everything that they literally can't lose lately. So really happy to see that. Here's some specs on both of them. Guys, if you haven't seen one of my videos before, my name is Stefan Malloch. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking, news reviews, and tutorials. So if you do enjoy this type of video, this type of content, and you want to see more just like it, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and join the community. Anyways, let's dive into our first category between these two, which is size. So now let's have a quick look at a size comparison between the two, starting with the 28-200. With the lens hood installed, it measures 5 3/4 inches, and fully extended it's just under 8 inches. With the lens hood off for travel, it's just 4.5 inches long, and weighing only 1 1/4 pounds makes this a great travel and all-around lens for pretty much any use. The 70-180, however, is a little bit bigger, measuring 7 5/8 inches long with the lens hood installed, 8 7/8 inches long fully extended, and just shy of 6 inches without. It's also very light for what it is, weighing just 810 grams or about 1 3/4 pounds. Here they are side by side, and as you can see, there is quite a difference. The 28-200 is smaller and more versatile, but of course everything comes at a cost, which we'll have a look at shortly. It does win the size category though. Next, having a look at the build and features of these two, they're very comparable to the whole Tamron line that you've seen lately, all with 67mm filter threads, the same look and feel of the 28-75 and the 17-28. Aside from a lock switch, neither of these lenses have any buttons or switches. Of course, they both extend as they zoom. The 28-200 is very similar and looks to be just a smaller, more versatile version of the 70-180. Both are going to have Tamron's proprietary anti-ghosting and flare coating, and on the back you'll find a sturdy metal mount, with the addition of a nice rubber gasket for confidence when it comes to weather sealing. Both are a plastic or composite material, and both lack image stabilization. Understandable in the 28-200, but a bit disappointing in the 70-180 because of its price point. At the end of the day, we're really splitting hairs and the build is comparable. Now let's compare the performance differences, and I'll tell you right off the bat, being a more expensive lens and a sports tailored lens, the 70-180 is the better performer, both optically as well as in terms of autofocus. For a more in-depth look at either of these lenses, check out my full in-depth review on each. Let's start off by looking at the 28-200, specifically how the autofocus performs. The autofocus capabilities and system in this lens are good. It's not great. It does have a few issues and limitations, and as you can see here in a lower light situation in video, it actually does a pretty decent job. It's quick and smooth. Looking at some examples of a fast moving stress test using continuous autofocus, we'll show you that it's not going to perform up to the standards of the 70-180. It does utilize Tamron's fast RXD focusing motors, but because of the versatile focal range, it's just not quite as fast as the 70-180 or even the 28-75 if you're used to that. In instances like this with fast moving subjects, I averaged about a 50% hit rate. So with fast moving subjects, it's not going to be the greatest. And do keep in mind, being a newer lens, I do expect that Tamron will release some firmware improving the algorithm of the overall autofocus speed and reliability. Now, I don't want you to be confused here. This lens is absolutely going to keep up with the majority of the things that you throw at it. I always do my best to test them in the most stressful situations, so you don't have to. But for the average photographer, this thing's going to be great for pretty much everything. You can shoot portraits with it, you can shoot landscapes, and with its impressive minimum focus distance, you can shoot macro-like shots even at 28mm. I love how Tamron's engineering some of its newer lenses to give us these capabilities. It really makes them fun, and this lens is one of the most versatile that you can buy. Here's an example of that in action. You can see that you can actually get quite a bit closer at 28mm, allowing for some really interesting perspectives. Although it only has 7 aperture blades, you can get some really nice transitions and blurred backgrounds, and take advantage of that f2.8 when you're up close to your subjects. Check out the focal range to see exactly how versatile this lens really is. It's quite impressive. If you've made it this far and you haven't already, you might as well hit that subscribe button, and make sure you let me know down in the comments what you like and what you don't like about this lens. Now let's have a look at the 70-180 and see how it compares, starting with the autofocus. Utilizing Tamron's new linear focus motors, the autofocus speed of this lens is incredible. It's lightning fast and does prioritize speed over accuracy, I find. In good light, you're not going to have a problem, but in backlit situations or less than perfect conditions, you might find it struggling and hunting just a bit. In decent light, where you're probably going to be shooting most of the time, you're not going to have any issues. The optics of this lens and the focusing capabilities are a little bit different than your typical lens. Using your autofocus, your minimum focus distance is 33.5 inches throughout the entire focal range. Switch to manual, however, to get down to 10.6 inches on the wide end with 1:2 magnification ratio capabilities to get macro-like shots. But do note that it only works on the wide end. Zooming in will bring your minimum focus distance back out to 33.5 inches. I'm really liking the near macro capabilities that Tamron's giving us with a lot of their lenses lately. Autofocus consistency, even with moving subjects, is actually quite good. Here's a series of 55 shots I took, pretty much bang on in every shot, so this lens is going to be great for action shots, for animals and wildlife even though it doesn't have too much reach, and of course family and events. It's going to shine when it comes to portraits as well, and its 9 aperture blades means that it's going to produce some incredibly beautiful bokeh. Here's an example of what you can expect in terms of stability. 180mm isn't crazy, but it's still far enough out there where you're going to have some trouble hand holding. In this case, I'm using my in-body image stabilization with my A7 III, but if you don't have it, this is what you can expect. For me, this is one of the biggest downsides of this lens, and I think it's expected at this price range and definitely at this focal range. Having IBIS is definitely going to help your experience, but overall, having IBIS as well as built-in image stabilization in your lens does make quite a big difference. And here's a comparison of what this looks like in terms of stills, and using the IBIS in my A7 III, you can see that it does make quite a dramatic difference when it comes to lower shutter speeds. Here it is at 1/50th of a second. And here's a few more examples. If you do have IBIS, you're going to be able to get away with it just fine, but having a lens like the G Master with built-in image stabilization is going to make it that much better. Here's a few more photos of my travels, and I wanted to address the focal length. I find it a little bit funny. That missing 20mm for me does make a difference. When you buy a telephoto lens, you buy it for the reach. For me, I would have much preferred an 80-200 or an 80-210 or something, much like the 28-75. I would have preferred a little bit more on the long end, as this is what we buy these lenses for. Having said that, we do have the somewhat macro capabilities, which is a cool feature, so I guess it kind of evens out. But don't rule out crop mode if you're shooting on something like the A7 III. So once again, both lenses are completely capable. The 70-180 is definitely going to be sharper, especially in the corners. It's hard to say which one performs better because they're different. The 70-180 definitely performs better in terms of optics as well as autofocus, but it's not as versatile. The 28-200 for what it is absolutely incredible, incredibly sharp in the center, but does have that variable aperture. The overall edge for performance does go to the 70-180. So looking at the value of these two, Tamron has really stepped up in the last few years, giving us some absolutely amazing lenses that actually perform way out of their price range. These two not being exceptions, they're both full of value. The 70-180 F2.8, while lacking image stabilization, did fill a gaping hole and made a lot of people happy with its release. The 28-200 is a fantastic all-in-one lens, versatile and unique in its fast but variable aperture from f2.8 to 5.6, a much welcome cheaper competitor to the Sony 24-240. Whichever lens suits you best, rest assured that both have incredible value. So wrapping up, let's figure out which one's actually going to be better for you. Are you looking for a sports lens? Is autofocus speed and sharpness going to be the most important thing for you? Well, consider the 70-180, but do keep in mind that it's not image stabilized. Maybe budget's a factor and you're looking for that one lens that can really do it all. Well, the 28-200 is going to be fantastic for traveling and taking just about everything you throw at it. Sure, it's not going to be as sharp, but you can use it in basically every situation that you encounter. For what it is, it performs very well, and for the value, you just can't beat it. As always, here's my personal pros and cons for both of these lenses, things that I look for, and I hope it helps you out. If I didn't cover everything you were looking for, check out my full in-depth review on both of these lenses. There it is, guys. There's my comparison between these two beasts. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and join the community. And if you want to pick either of these up, I'll leave an affiliate link down below in the description. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.